Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. Is your roof ready for the next big storm? Call Daniel Hood Roofing today and set up a free inspection. Repair, restoration, or replacement. They can do it all. Call today, Daniel Hood Roofing. Okay, back with Chuck, David, Ryan, and Jimmy. I'll start with Jimmy. The NCAA tried to say all along, no pay for play, no using NIL as inducements. Whether it was stated clearly enough, that's open for debate. But by going back to punish schools for past actions, they are now facing a lawsuit that could end them. And I think this lawsuit, this antitrust suit, which we'll get into, I think that was coming at some point down the road. Somebody was going to do it, but they sped it up by doing this. They said, all right, now's the time. Let's have it. Well, would they have been better off delaying that by simply saying to Tennessee and everyone else, all right, if you ran into the gray, you got one over on us. But starting today, these are the laws of the land. If you violate it, we will hammer you. No recruiting inducements, none of this, none of that. Could they have saved themselves some trouble if they had just allowed bygones to be bygones, in other words?
Kind of like the police officer that stops you from going 80 into 65, and he said, I'm not going to give you a ticket, but next time you're going to get one. Yeah. I'm going to say yes to that. Now, having said that, would I expect schools to operate without recruiting inducements when players are in the portal? Absolutely not.
It would be the next team to do it.
I'd wash it clean and go forward and then penalize all 133 schools that are going to start cheating again with these offers under the table not under the table, that they're not supposed to make, because they're going to continue to use this as a recruiting inducement.
Should the NCAA have punted on this one and just said we're moving forward?
I don't know that it would have made a huge difference one way or the other, because you're passing up a car that's going 88 just to wait for the next one that's going to go 89 or 90. And so it didn't matter. Now, you could argue, is the NCAA stepping in it by going after Tennessee specifically with its fan base and its willingness to fight this?
Twitter is going to get them.
I mean, you could certainly argue this isn't the best school to go after in this case, but as far as whether it was going to happen, it's just a matter of when and who, not whether it was going to eventually happen.
Chuck, your thoughts? Could they have avoided this? Should they have avoided this?
I think they could have avoided it, but here's the deal. Could the NCAA, as shaky as it may be, continue to coexist in the current climate of the NIL? And I would say no. I would say they're picking this fight because I think that ship is sinking and they're going to go down swinging. From the NCAA perspective, it's not fair if certain schools get an advantage just because they have more money.
Well, that's based on the schools saying that.
I know.
See,
but
that's
no,
what
I
people
think
forget.
the NCAA could have handled this a lot differently, but I don't think they can deal with it. I don't think they can deal with the NIL.
I agree. I think this battle was coming at some point. You could ask the question, who is it that's picking this fight? The NCAA is the question. Florida. I mean, they hit Florida and Florida. You would think the state of Florida would be fighting them since they got Florida State, and Miami. But so I don't know that they're picking the fight or Tennessee's picking the fight because they see we're a repeat offender and we will get clobbered if we just accept the penalties the way Florida State did. One thing, David, I want to get with you. People talk about the NCAA as though it is Spectre from the James Bond movie. It is Thanos from the Marvel movies. This evil overlord that landed and took over sports. I don't think they realize Tennessee is the NCAA. Yes. Alabama is the NCAA. The problem is Texas Corpus Christi and South Carolina Aiken are also the NCAA, and they shouldn't all be in one big group, but they are. But the enemy is within. I mean, that's the thing that I think people forget.
Well, that's why I think you're going to have, I don't want to use the term break off, but I think Charlie Baker's proposal in
his own subdivision,
December, I think is where we're going, because I always say it does not make sense for Alabama football to be governed by the same rule book as UMass field hockey. They have nothing in common. And so a lot of these rules are because people know whatever chance they had at a competitive balance is gone. But if you can thin that out, thin the herd, and have a new subdivision where you have 60 people who pay the price of admission, whatever that looks like, who have a little bit more in common and can come up with these rules. And to the question of could they have avoided this, they produced this because the NIL guidelines were haphazardly made on short term because the NCAA did not want to cede ground at all for decades.
Right.
This has come up.
That's the problem. Yeah. They could fix this decades
You could come
ago.
up with this and do this over 2 to 3 years and come up with a real plan with real consequences and real rules. Instead, you threw out these insane guidelines that allowed for a lot of gray.
I don't think the guidelines are that insane. We showed them.
They're insane as a governing tool because there is a lot of of gray in there. And so, because again, you're coming
They're
out there and
insane because the NCAA is going to lose in court with them and can't win with them.
that's
the
part of
problem.
it. But they're insane because they're not comprehensive and they're not clear. And so when you do that, you have you invite a
But here's the
environment.
problem. Here's the problem with that. They're not clear. And everybody says we should have like a 3-page rule book. Why does it matter if somebody's eating a hot dog? Because if you don't specify a hot dog's illegal, somebody's going to give crab cakes. And if somebody gives crab cakes, somebody's going to give a steak. So that's the problem. They're not clear. All right, then your rule book's going to be this. Because UT and other schools are going to go through it, your 400-page rule book. There's a gray area. Okay, we got to add another 100 pages. That's the problem. You are so anti-NCAA that I think it clouds your vision on
because
everything
the whole
else.
thing is messed up. Like the whole, like you're preventing capitalism. There's no reason why a guy should
Oh,
not
I get
get
that, but
paid.
it's also going to destroy the sport. I look at it from a realistic standpoint, too, that there's got to be a better way of doing this rather than the NCAA must go away. What comes next? That's the problem. Something's coming after it, and you know what? You're not going to like it either. Because whatever makes rules, we don't like
People
them.
hate Roger Goodell, I've heard.
That's right. All right, when we come back, we got to move on. What are we doing here? What's next? Is UT better off in the court case if it focuses on the big picture and not the details? The answer is yes, and we'll tell you why. Come on back.